The day began like any other, with the usual routine that seemed more automatic than deliberate. As a former soldier, you retain that discipline even in civilian life. Morning workout, quick breakfast, and right into the day's tasks. It was completely mechanical. Despite the calm, there was a nagging sense that something was about to change, but I couldn't pinpoint what. Looking back, I realized that feeling was a warning that I should have taken. For years, I thought I had established a stable lifestyle, marriage, a secure job, and a safe home. However, life often surprises you when you least expect it. In retrospect, I should have noticed the cracks before everything collapsed. But you cannot change the past. All you can do is brace yourself when the impact occurs. That day, I was caught off guard by a betrayal I never expected. During my time in the Middle East as a Marine, I survived 3 ambushes, each of which taught me valuable survival skills. First, maintain vigilance and anticipate threats. Unfortunately, I overlooked the signs with Tracy and Stanley Cross. Second, seek immediate cover, as I did by retreating to my bedroom. Finally, make a plan to get yourself out of danger. I quickly devised a strategy, changing into casual clothes and discreetly slipping my iPhone into my shirt pocket to record. I went into my dressing room, took a hidden key from an old shoebox labeled Captain B.K. Ramsey USMC, and found my Marine Corps Beretta 9M inside. I'd been married to Tracy for 7 years and had 3 wonderful children, Tyler, who was 7, and twin 6-year-old girls, Beth and Emily. My family was my world, and I tried not to let work interfere with our time together. We lived in a 4-bedroom house in a wonderful neighborhood. Our parents lived nearby and paid regular visits to the grandchildren, as did Tracy's sister. Life seemed perfect until the kids started school and Tracy went back to work. I should have recognized the warning signs, but my faith in Tracy's loyalty clouded my judgment. She began dressing more provocatively. Our closeness dwindled as she spent more time at work. When I asked her about it, she dismissed it, claiming it was a fantastic career opportunity that would benefit us financially. I'd met her boss, Stanley Cross, at several social gatherings and Christmas parties. He was the senior partner in her firm, arrogant and disrespectful. I never trusted him. Tracy appeared possessive, unwilling to leave the office the few times I visited. I hadn't paid attention to Tracy's potential romance with her boss. Things fell apart when the twins finished kindergarten. The kids were spending the weekend with my parents, and I was excited to rekindle our relationship. But when I arrived home that evening, Tracy was already dressed up, looking stunning and clearly ready for a night out. "Wow, you look stunning. If I had known we had a date, I would have rushed home. Just give me a few minutes to freshen up, and I'll be prepared. Where are we going?" I asked, smiling. Tracy smirked, but it wasn't a smile. "Souter, we are not going anywhere." "I am, but not with you," she replied. I was stunned. What exactly are you talking about?" I asked. "I have a date with my boss, Stanley Cross, and that's only the beginning. New rules will be implemented starting now. Stan's picking me up, and I'll be staying with him in a downtown suite tonight and tomorrow. I'll be back Sunday afternoon," she explained calmly. "What are you talking about?" I shouted. "Calm down. This is how it will be. I'm leaving and will be back on Sunday," she responded coldly. "Nonsense. If you think I'm putting up with this, you're mistaken. You've left and you won't be returning," I said, my temper rising. "No, Blake, I'm coming home. We are staying married, and I will continue to live here. I love you, but I need more. If you make this difficult, you will be the one who leaves. It would be a shame if our children's father ended up broken in jail. Let's sit down, and I'll explain the changes before Stan arrives in 30 minutes. Tracy was confident that if she had to explain it, I would dislike it even more. "If that guy shows up, he'll get his back kicked in 31 minutes, I replied. "Tracy warned me not to do that. You must listen to what he can do to you if you don't cooperate, and Max will accompany him." Max, his driver and bodyguard. He's big and mean, and he won't hesitate to put you in the hospital." I felt a familiar sense of danger, as if I were in the Middle East again, ambushed on one side and my wife, Stanley Cross, on the other. They had the advantage, and I was trapped. I squeezed past Tracy and went upstairs. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "I need to clean up. I'll be down in 5 minutes," I said, attempting to regain my composure. As a Marine, I learned 3 rules about ambushes: anticipate, take cover, and plan your escape. I missed the first with Tracy and Stanley, but I went back to my room. Then I made a plan. I changed into casual clothes, put my iPhone on record, and slipped it into my shirt pocket. I went to the dressing room and found a hidden key in an old shoebox labeled Captain Beck Ramsey Hughes MC. I found my Marine Corps Beretta 9M pistol, which had saved my life in combat. I loaded the weapon. Tracy called from downstairs. "Blake, get down here, or you will regret it." "I'll be right down. Give me a beer," I said, loading the chamber. I tucked the weapon behind my belt and pulled my shirt over it, making it disappear. I then activated the phone's recording feature, put it back in my pocket, and prepared to confront Tracy. I was determined to let her speak, to get her to reveal her plans and how she viewed the situation. Using the interrogation techniques I learned in the Marines, I approached the dining table. Tracy was waiting, holding a glass of white wine and a cold beer. "It's about time," she explained. "We need to speak before Stan arrives." "Tracy, it sounds like you've got a lot to say. Tell me about this new reality I must accept," I responded. She started. "I want you to remember that I adore you more than anything. I want to grow old alongside you, and I do not want to hurt you." I cut her off. "Tracy, no more sweet talk. Please call me Blake, and I will call you Tracy." She appeared offended but continued. "As of tonight, things have changed, and you must accept that Stan and I have had an affair for nearly 7 months. It began with flirting, and we are now very close. I was flattered by his attention, which led to more." "Clearly, you haven't considered the consequences," I said. "I apologize, Blake, but that does not mean I don't love you. You are still the person I want to spend my life with," she responded. "Good luck with that," I muttered. "Why come clean now, after months of lying?" I asked. "We got tired of hiding it. We want to enjoy our relationship openly, sleeping, traveling, and spending quality time together as lovers. The only way to accomplish this was for you to accept it," she explained. "Good luck with that," I repeated. "No, Blake, we are staying married. You only need to accept that I will be spending time with Stan, staying the night, traveling, and attending events. It will benefit us financially. Consider the benefits: vacations, college for the kids, and upgrading the lake house. If you think I want anything paid for with that money, you're mistaken," I shot back. Tracy said angrily, "I'm not a strumpet. I'm an asset to the company, and I'm proud to be Stan's mistress. This will not last forever. Maybe in a few years, things will return to normal," she added. "Stan also wants to be your friend. He believes in sharing as long as everyone gets what they want. He knows I still love you and want you in my life. He may even become a family friend, maybe an uncle to our children." I was furious, but I maintained my composure. "He will never be with my children. Ever. Do you understand what I asked? Why would he want to become close to my family? Doesn't he have his own? Stan is married to a younger woman from a prominent family, but she is unable to bear children," Tracy explained. "Perhaps he should adopt rather than participate in other people's marriages," I said. "Stan wishes to have an heir to his law firm among his own children. He prefers a son, but is willing to accept a daughter," Tracy responded. "So why doesn't he just use a surrogate to have as many children as he wants?" I asked. "He mentioned it, but he feels he'd be a terrible father. He wants any child to grow up in a loving family," she continued, lowering her head. I could feel my anger rising. "So he wants you to get pregnant and let me raise his child?" Tracy insisted it wouldn't be illegitimate. It would be my child too, and I would love them just as much as you would. Because you love me. Stan would pay us a large sum of money to raise the baby, covering all expenses until they graduated from college. Are you pregnant yet? I asked. She replied, no, but he wants me to stop taking the pill soon. I told him I wanted you to be comfortable with the new arrangement. First, this keeps getting better, I muttered. Tracy became angry. Stop saying it, she demanded. I understand you're upset right now, but we hope you'll come around eventually. Before I could reply, the doorbell rang. Tracy rushed to open the door, and Stan, her boss, entered, wrapping his arm around her and kissing her. This keeps getting better, I repeated under my breath. How did he take it? Stan asked. Not well. I believe you should explain the consequences, Tracy replied. Stan, a tall, slightly overweight man with graying hair, stepped into my personal space with confidence. Mr. Ramsey, we need to talk, he spoke firmly. Talk? I should kick your back, I replied. You could try, he smirked. But my driver will be with you before you know it. You will be in jail tonight, so why not sit down? I sighed, looked at the large man outside the door, and reluctantly sat down. Great. We can now communicate like civilized people. Your wife has agreed to be my personal assistant, which includes some additional responsibilities. We've been enjoying our relationship for 6 months, but we're tired of hiding. You two will make a new arrangement. I'll take care of Tracy's needs most of the time at the hotel or office, but occasionally at your house when you're not there. Do you think I'll accept this? I'll divorce her before I put up with this nonsense, I snapped. Stan stayed calm. Mr. Ramsey, I suggest you reconsider. I'm a powerful lawyer at the largest law firm in town. If you try to divorce her, I will ensure that you lose everything. Your home, money, and children. You will pay alimony and child support while she continues to live with me. You could end up in jail and lose your job. Your family and friends will turn away from you. I sat there stunned, realizing just how far Tracy and Stan were willing to go. Stan knew I would not act rashly now. He warned me that any attempt to fight back would result in severe consequences, including physical harm. He concluded by saying, "Be a good boy and accept this new arrangement. Your wife is an excellent assistant." I turned to Tracy and said, "Would you really do this to me?" She replied, "I don't want to, but I won't have to if you cooperate. This will become second nature to you after a while." Still stunned, I watched them walk toward the door. Just as they were about to leave, I spoke up. "Before you leave, I have a few words to say." Stan rolled his eyes, clearly annoyed. "Make it quick," he began. "After a few drinks, I mourned my marriage. I'm calling your wife to tell her everything. Then I'll call Tracy's sister, Lucy, and have her inform your parents." Stan appeared surprised, because this wasn't the response he expected. "What have you said?" he asked. I ignored him and continued. "Tomorrow morning, I will change all of the locks. After that, I'll take Kate down the street for dinner and dancing. She's been flirting with me for months, and I never considered it before, but things have changed." Tracy appeared to be hurt. "Blake, you cannot do that." I pushed on. "When you return on Sunday, you will find all of Tracy's belongings in the yard. Pick them up before the sprinklers go off on Monday morning." Stan became enraged and clenched his fists as he realized his threats were ineffective. Tracy appeared pained. "One more thing," I added. "On Monday, I'll meet with a divorce attorney. I'll file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity, a name under which you stand as a co-defendant. I'll also sue you for alienation of affection and violating your company's policies. Even if the lawsuits fail, they will publicly embarrass you and harm your reputation." Stan exploded in rage, hurling the overnight bag against the wall and stepping into my personal space, jabbing me in the chest. I resisted the urge to retaliate. "Listen, betrayed man," he sneered. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I'm Stanley Cross, the head of the county's largest law firm. I could legally destroy you in one day. By the time I get to the hotel, you'll be arrested on false charges. Do you think you can fight me? You cannot. I know the cops, the district attorney, and the judges. Everyone owes me favors. If you step out of line, your life will end. Stan was on a roll, so I let him continue. If you go out with Kate tomorrow, the cops will stop. You discover pills in your car, and you'll spend years fighting charges. No lawyer will accept your case against me, and I will continue to enjoy your wife while you are ruined. Do you understand? Betrayed man, I believe you, I responded sarcastically. Stan glared at me. Show some respect. Call me sir or Mr. Cross. Max will teach you proper manners if you insult him again. He tried to punch me, but I hit him first. Tracy pushed him onto the couch, rushing to his side as he screamed, "You will pay for this. Max, get in here." The door opened and Max, a large and intimidating man, entered the room. "Yes, Mr. Cross," he answered. "Take care of him," Stan instructed, and Max moved toward me. Tracy attempted to protest, but Cross dismissed her with a wave. Tracy mentioned that Cross would bring his bodyguard, which made me expect trouble. So I stood my ground as Max swung his fist at my head, causing me pain. I was wondering if I'd need a new carpet because of the bloodstains. Max hesitated, unsure whether to continue striking me or look to Cross for guidance. "Max, throw a punch," Cross ordered. Realizing I couldn't take it any longer, I taunted Max, saying, "You knock like a girl." His pride was wounded. Max prepared to throw another punch. Before he could react, I managed to defend myself, and the situation took an unexpected and shocking turn. Max appeared stunned as he fumbled for his weapon, realizing he was in a gunfight. I warned him to stop, and the tension in the room increased. I crawled over, took his weapon, and pocketed it. "How much respect do you believe I have for you?" I asked Max. He shook his head. "Exactly, none," I said. "There's no reason not to destroy you, right?" Max groaned with pain. I told him that if I didn't get him to the doctor soon, he might not make it. As I focused on Max, Tracy shouted a warning, and I turned to see Cross approaching with a fireplace poker. I instinctively tried to block it with my arm, but the force caused me severe pain. The weapon fell to the floor, and I grabbed it first, preventing further escalation. "Now, where is your phone?" I demanded. Cross hesitated before pointing to his coat pocket. I took out the phone and instructed him to unlock it. With shaky hands, he did it. "Now, call your wife via FaceTime," I ordered. Cross's wife replied, perplexed. "Stan, why are you calling? Who is this?" "Mrs. Cross, my name is Blake Ramsey. You don't know me, but your husband knows Tracy, my wife. They've been having an affair for several months." Her shock was palpable as I revealed her husband's face on the floor. "Oh my God," she screamed. "Do not hurt him." I explained to Mrs. Cross, "Your husband and my wife have planned a weekend together." When I objected, he had his driver try to help me. Unfortunately for Max, I needed to defend myself. She stammered. "Stanley informed me that he was working in Palm Springs this weekend." "He lied," I responded. "He's here with Tracy, who is excited to spend the weekend with him." I showed Tracy, who was pale and trembling on the couch. "Mrs. Cross, this is what is really happening." After a pause, she whispered, "I'm surprised too. I have to go now. The police will be here shortly." I tossed the phone aside, saying, "It was nice talking to you." I turned back to Cross, adding, "So now your wife is aware of your minor side activities. What were your plans if I told her? Send Max and his friends after me?" Cross did not respond, too preoccupied with clutching his injured leg as blood seeped through his pants. "I'll make this clear, Cross," I said quietly. "If you send anyone after me, I will destroy them and then come for you. Understand?" Cross nodded, pale and sweaty. Then I noticed a foul odor. "Have you just soiled yourself?" I asked, mocking him. Tracy appeared horrified as the situation unfolded. "Tracy, bring me my briefcase. I said calmly, still holding the weapon on cross. She retrieved it nervously while I took out my laptop. Holding it up, I inquired, "Is this the computer you were planning to load with evidence, Cross?" He said nothing. I turned it over, positioned it near his head, and fired 2 bullets at it. The fire shot echoed throughout the room, filling it with smoke. Leaning in, I whispered into his ear, "Try loading it with anything now. Overall, are you satisfied?" I stood up and entered the kitchen. My mind was racing, and my head hurt terribly. I splashed water on my face, realizing I could have a concussion. When I returned to the living room, everyone remained in place. "Stay put until the police arrive. They should arrive any minute," I remarked sarcastically before stepping onto the porch outside, where several neighbors had gathered. "Blake, were there any shots fired?" "Yes." "Did anyone make an emergency call?" I asked, and a few people raised their hands. Colonel Orson Sage, a retired Marine, and my closest friend, was among them. "Are you hurt, Captain?" he inquired with concern. "You should see the other guys," I said with a grim smile. I heard sirens in the distance. "Colonel," I called, "I need your help." "Of course, Captain," he said, stepping onto the porch. "Help me unload and place my weapons on the table. I do not want to be holding one when the cops arrive," I explained, handing him Max's weapon. The colonel quickly disarmed and set the weapons on the table. Kate, a neighbor, noticed my injuries and approached to help. Turning to the colonel, I stated, "I wish I could explain everything, but there isn't time. I fought with my wife's boyfriend, a powerful lawyer. He threatened to put pills in my car and have me arrested. Could you please hide my car after this is over if the garage is not taped off? The code represents my street address." "Oh, will do, Captain," he responded. Kate added, "Blake, you don't look good." "My head is spinning," I admitted. Maybe I was knocked harder than I thought. Kate helped me sit down just as 2 police cars arrived, sirens blaring. The officers worked their way through the crowd. "Weapons are at the ready," the colonel reassured them, pointing to the unloaded weapons on the table. One officer looked at me and said, "You need medical attention." 2 ambulances arrived, and medics rushed into the house to care for Max. Meanwhile, my head was spinning faster, and Kate told me to lie down. A medic examined my face and arms, suspecting they were broken. I lost consciousness and only vaguely recall Max being carried on a stretcher and Cross, limping to the ambulance. A female officer then led Tracy outside to a police car. She came to a halt when she saw me lying on the porch, tears streaming down her cheeks as she assessed my injuries. "Blake, I am deeply sorry. This is not what I wanted," Tracy cried. "I never meant for you to be hurt." She attempted to reach out to me, but I pushed her away. "Go to hell, Tracy," I said coldly. Her handler quickly led her to the police car. I'm not sure if I passed out or if the medic administered something, but I was out for 3 days. When I awoke, my vision was blurry, but I saw a nurse who appeared to be an angel in white, despite the fact that she was about 60. "Mr. Blake, do you hear me?" she asked. "I am so glad you are back with us." "I must be in the hospital," I replied weakly. "Yes," she confirmed. "You're in Mercy General Hospital. You have been asleep for 3 days." "3 days?" I exclaimed. "Yes, I'll contact the doctor. Simply relax." "My name is Rose," she said politely. When left alone, I assessed my injuries. My right forearm was in a cast. My face was bandaged, and my left eye and nose hurt to the touch. Aside from my injuries, I was hooked up to machines such as a saline drip and a blood pressure cuff. I also had a catheter. Rose returned with the doctor, who introduced himself as Dr. York. He informed me that I had a fractured forearm, broken nose, and a black eye. He kept me sedated for a minor concussion. Because it was late, he gave me something to help me sleep until I awoke the next morning. I discovered my left wrist handcuffed to the bed rail. "What the hell?" I exclaimed, tugging on the cuff. "Relax, Mr. Ramsey," said a voice across the room. A middle-aged man wearing a suit introduced himself as Detective Sergeant Hardman. "We were worried you would try to flee," he said. "Run. Under this condition." "Why should I run?" I inquired, bewildered. "You're under arrest," Hardman said calmly. "What for?" I inquired, shocked. "Attack with the intent to commit liquidation, attack with a deadly weapon, and unlawful discharge of a firearm," he explained. "Stanley Cross filed the charges on behalf of himself, Max Angelo, and your wife Tracy." "I should have known," I muttered. Hardman then read me my rights and exited the room. Rose returned quietly to monitor my vital signs. I asked if she was aware of the handcuffs, and she confirmed that she had apologized softly. I tried to lighten the mood by joking about taking her out to dinner once this was over. Later, Dr. York assured me that my injuries would heal and informed me that I would be transferred to another room with a different doctor. Soon after, Detective Hardman and some orderlies wheeled me up to the 3rd floor, past a police guard. Once in my new room, the handcuffs were removed, and I was reconnected to the machines. Before leaving, Hardman informed me that I would be appearing in court via video in a few days to enter a plea. He also said he'd arrange for a public defender to meet with me. As I lay in that hospital room, I thought about how quickly my life had turned upside down. I was heartbroken over my marriage and concerned about my children. Where were they? What were they told? Who took care of them? I also wondered about my job, as I had been absent for 4 days without notice. The hospital staff was unable to answer my questions. On the 5th day, a young public defender named Sam Wilton arrived. He went over the charges against me, which were the same ones Detective Hardman had mentioned. He inquired as to how I intended to plead and suggested that I negotiate with the district attorney. Suppose I admitted to some minor charges. I interrupted, saying, "I am not guilty of any charges." Sam appeared surprised but continued. He told me Tracy had been staying with her sister Lucy, and the children were with them. The children were only informed that I would be gone for a long time. When I asked about my job, Sam offered to contact my company and explain the circumstances. As I reviewed the charges, I noticed one for spousal abuse. Sam clarified that Cross added this after Tracy claimed I had slapped her, displaying photographs of bruises on her face and arm. "I did not do that," I protested, but Sam appeared skeptical. I didn't trust him enough to go any further, fearing Cross's influence. "Sam, you must plead not guilty for me," I insisted. He reluctantly agreed but warned that I would have to post bail due to the shooting charges. He seemed skeptical about my innocence. I didn't mention that I had evidence proving self-defense because I didn't want that information to reach the police or the district attorney. Instead, I asked Sam to contact my uncle, Jack Carter, a retired Navy attorney, for assistance. I told Sam to keep this private and only inform Uncle Jack of the charges and my plea. Later that night, Sam confirmed that my uncle would arrive soon and advised me to say nothing but not guilty at the trial. The following day, I was arraigned via video from the hospital. I pleaded not guilty to all charges. The prosecutor wanted me held without bail, but the judge let me stay in the hospital for another 2 days before being transferred to jail. Uncle Jack arrived the day before my transfer and officially took over my case, including permission to visit me. Seeing him moved me to tears. Uncle Jack recognized the gravity of my situation, and following a brief reunion, got down to business. He set up a private meeting to discuss the case and kept me up to date on family matters. He assured me that the kids were fine and would stay with Lucy until the police cleared the house. Lucy was puzzled. Tracy had told her what had happened and the charges leveled against me. But Lucy, who had known me for many years, found it difficult to believe. She was relieved that Uncle Jack was there to help. Uncle Jack then inquired about my side of the story. In hushed tones, I told him everything, including how Stanley Cross, Max Angelo, and Tracy had most likely created a false version of events following my arrest. I also revealed that I had a videotape of the entire incident saved on my iPhone and hidden in a kitchen drawer. Uncle Jack didn't show much emotion, but he appeared relieved that there was potential evidence. He assured me that he'd be my guardian angel throughout this, You concentrate on getting better while I build your defense and prepare to bail. I also asked him to check on my children, and he promised to coordinate with Lucy once I was discharged from the hospital. I was transferred to the county jail. 3 days later, I appeared before the judge, and Uncle Jack was able to get me released on bail, albeit under house arrest. Uncle Jack had rented a townhouse in a gated community where I would be staying. He also lived there, and while I couldn't leave, I was no longer in jail. Uncle Jack was working on the case, including hiring a private investigator to pursue leads. The most difficult challenge was retrieving my phone from the house without causing legal trouble. He promised to find a solution, but he understood it would take time. Meanwhile, Uncle Jack created new cell phone accounts for both of us, ensuring that we could communicate. I called my neighbor, the Colonel, who mentioned some unusual activity at my house. When I told Uncle Jack, he suggested we invite the Colonel over for beer and steak. The Colonel stated that about a week after the incident, he witnessed 2 men in dark clothing attempting to pick the garage door lock. He called for help, grabbed his dog and a bat, and confronted them. Surprised, the intruders backed away but threatened him. The Colonel's dog growled, and he took a batter stance with the bat, scaring them away. They fled in a black SUV with smudged license plates. The police arrived, took the report, and then left. I remembered Cross's threat to plant pills in my car, so I was relieved when the Colonel moved it to a safe location. The Colonel had another story. 2 days after Tracy returned home, he noticed a black SUV parked in front. 2 men were talking to Tracy near the open garage, pointing to the location where my car usually sat. After a brief conversation, they went inside and left. 45 minutes later, the Colonel made a note of the SUV's license plate number. Uncle Jake checked the license plate against his sources and discovered it belonged to Unique Services, a private investigation firm. The company only hired Jose Gonzalez and Miguel Ortega, both former police officers with questionable backgrounds. Jose resigned due to a theft issue, and Miguel was fired for falsifying records. Stanley Cross's law firm was among their clients. Retrieving my cell phone from the kitchen became urgent. Uncle Jake called Tracy and suggested they meet to discuss resolving the situation and possibly dropping charges. Tracy recognized Uncle Jake from family gatherings but was suspicious. She agreed to meet the next day, but insisted on having one of her lawyers present. Uncle Jake agreed. At 6 p.m., Uncle Jake arrived at my house. Tracy greeted him warmly, and they shared a brief hug. She was dressed modestly in a skirt and blouse. Her hair was in a ponytail. Inside, a young man named Gordon Merritt, an associate at Cross's law firm, was introduced. They all sat in the family room, and Tracy offered to get some coffee. Merritt suggested getting right to business, taking out a tape recorder. Uncle Jake did the same, and they both smiled. Uncle Jake began by expressing his regret for the situation, saying he had always admired Tracy and me as a couple. Tracy responded sadly, stating that she never intended for things to get out of control. Uncle Jake continued, implying that he believed the charges against me. He mentioned that I had claimed Tracy and Cross were having an affair, which pushed me over the edge when I discovered Cross in the house. Merritt intervened, stating that the evidence appeared to be solid against me. Uncle Jake suggested that I wasn't thinking clearly at the time of the incident because I thought Cross was taking Tracy away. Merritt thought about it, but said they would only consider it if I pleaded guilty. Uncle Jake responded by questioning whether all charges had to be admitted or if some could be reduced or dropped. Merritt stated that he would need to consult Cross, who had influence with the DA, and may prefer a quieter resolution to avoid harming his reputation or business. Before leaving, Uncle Jake reminded Tracy that I loved and missed the children. He also warned her that if my story was proven true, she could be charged with perjury and obstruction of justice. He issued a similar warning to Merritt, implying that if he knowingly supported a false narrative, he could also face prosecution. With that, Uncle Jake stood up and asked for some water. Tracy pointed him to the kitchen, not realizing that retrieving my hidden phone was the real goal. Uncle Jake went to the kitchen, making sure he wasn't visible from the family room. He opened the refrigerator noisily before quickly searching the drawer by the sink for my iPhone, which was hidden among dish towels. He tucked it away, poured himself some ice water, and returned to the family room approximately 2 minutes later. "Is there anything you'd like to say before I leave, Tracy?" he asked. Tracy looked nervously at Gordon Merritt, who replied, "We have nothing more to add now, Mr. Carter. We will notify you of any changes to the charges, and you must cooperate if you want this case to be resolved." Uncle Jake thanked them for meeting and then left. He did not return the iPhone to the townhouse, but rather had it analyzed by Digital Analysis Solutions, DAS. He explained the significance of the video and audio recordings in my defense, and DAS agreed to handle them carefully. They'd promised to get back to him in a couple of days. When Uncle Jake and I visited DAS, they had already transferred all of the phone's data to their server. They discovered the critical video and made multiple copies to ensure it could not be lost or tampered with. We watched the video, which clearly captured the events, including Max pointing a weapon at me, despite some blurry sections. DAS also found 97 unopened emails and 64 text messages sent following the incident. The majority were from friends and family, but one suspicious message contained 27 photos that would have automatically downloaded to my phone's photo files if opened. Cross appeared to have attempted to plant evidence after I had destroyed my computer. Uncle Jake thanked DAS and agreed to leave the phone with them for safekeeping. Uncle Jake took a few copies of the videos with him as we reviewed the evidence and discussed our next steps. He considered whether to present the evidence to the district attorney now, which could result in all charges being dropped and potentially implicating Cross, Max, and Tracy. However, if Cross's influence was as strong as suspected, the DA might be able to quietly resolve the case. Alternatively, we could wait until the hearing, during which the prosecution would present its case, before revealing our evidence, forcing the DA to charge the conspirators with perjury, obstruction of justice, and other offenses. That would result in significant jail time and a better chance of obtaining custody of my children. When Uncle Jake asked how I wanted to proceed, I said, "Let's burn them all." He was satisfied. I was hoping Blake would say that. I want to expose them publicly and have a Perry Mason moment in court. There are 3 weeks until the hearing. Uncle Jake focused on preparing our case. He realized that revealing the video too soon might result in it being suppressed, so he decided to keep it hidden until the right moment. Uncle Jake took a brief legal week before the hearing to return to San Francisco to attend court and spend time with family. During that time, I received a call from the gate guard informing me that Tracy was at the gate and wanted to see me. I immediately called Uncle Jake, who advised me that if she wanted to talk, I should listen but not touch her. "Remember, she is dangerous." "Do not worry, Uncle Jake," I replied. "She is poison to me now." Uncle Jake said, "You know what you need to do." "Yes, Uncle Jack, I do," I confirmed. After finishing my call with Uncle Jack, I called security and asked them to let Tracy through. Just a few minutes before she arrived, I quickly cleaned up the townhouse. I removed the legal papers from the dining table and threw them on the bed, collected the beer cans, cleaned the kitchen, and loaded the dishwasher. I changed into Dockers and a knit sports shirt, combed my hair, and kept my 3-day stubble, giving me a more serious appearance. Tracy knocked, so I opened the door. She looked fantastic, clearly putting effort into her appearance in a red pleated skirt and a pink cashmere sweater. Her hair was styled in a loose updo, and her makeup was minimal. "Come inside, Tracy," I said. "You look fantastic." "Thank you." "Blake, you look good too," she said, complimenting my slim figure. "I've had time to exercise and eat healthier," I explained, inviting her to sit on the couch. I served her a glass of white wine and sat down with a glass of red. After a few sips, I asked why she wanted to see me. "Blake, despite everything, I continue to love you. I never imagined things would get this far. I assumed you'd accept my relationship with Cross, and we could have had a lot of money and a comfortable life. Things would eventually have returned to normal. I apologize. I ruined your plans, I said sarcastically. It wasn't in my plans, it was Cross's. He thought he could intimidate you as he does with others. Neither of us expected you to fight back. Perhaps he underestimated me, I said. Tracy asked abruptly, "Where's your car?" I smiled slightly. I moved it after Cross threatened to plant pills in it. By the way, what did those men do at the house when you returned? They appeared interested in the garage and my missing car. Tracy hesitated before admitting they intended to plant evidence. I did not want it, but Stanley insisted. You do not appear to mind stacking evidence against me. If you genuinely love me, simply tell the truth and the charges will be dropped. I can't, Blake. I'm in too deep. Stanley has complete control over everything. I guess I am out of luck, I mentioned. I asked, what's with the accusation of misuse? Tracy explained that she had seen pictures of my injuries, but I had never touched her. This was Stanley's idea. He made up a story about me going crazy, accusing us of having an affair, and attacking me. Max attempted to assist, but I defended myself. Stanley punched me, causing the injuries. We've been practicing the story ever since. I apologize, Blake, she added. I did not want this to happen. I want things to return to their previous state. That is not going to happen, I replied. Tracy then suggested a way out. Stanley knows about your PTSD. He expects you to plead guilty based on that. He'll use his connections to get you into a veterans hospital for treatment. In a year or less, you could be released, and we could begin again with the children. So that was the real reason she came to speak with me. She asked me to volunteer, promising that Cross would help me receive a shorter sentence in a veterans mental institution. I didn't believe any of it, but I didn't tell Tracy. Instead, I went along with her. That sounds good to me, Tracy, but I need some time to think about it. Plus, I need to speak with Uncle Jack. I believe he might agree. In comparison to your testimony, he does not have much evidence to support my case. Cross and Max. Please do it for yourself, Blake, Tracy added. Do it for yourself, me, and the children. In a few years, it will be as if it never happened. It will only be a temporary setback. I doubt it, I said. You have been with another man for months. They wanted me to be a betrayed man for your boss. They threatened to take my children away if I didn't cooperate, and made false accusations that would land me in jail for years. That is a significant stumbling block. That is why I would like you to accept Stanley's offer. It is the easiest way out for all of us. Tracy spoke with tears in her eyes. Like I said, I'll think about it. I replied once more, and we were done. I assumed it was time for her to leave, but Tracy placed her hand on mine and suggested we rest together for a few minutes. I missed having you in my bed. Is there any way we could fall asleep together tonight and forget about everything for a few hours? That's not going to happen, Tracy, I said firmly. She received the message. Please accept Stanley's offer, she said as I led her to the door. Before leaving, she hugged me. It felt genuine, but I did not return it. The hearing's purpose was to determine whether I would be held for investigation. The prosecution was confident. Predictably, they put Cross, Max, and Tracy on the stand to tell their well-rehearsed stories. Uncle Jake asked each witness only one question. Do you swear your testimony is true? All three responded positively. Uncle Jake wanted to go after Doza Miguel and the main witnesses, but proving their attempt to frame me was irrelevant to the charges against me, especially since their efforts were unsuccessful. When the prosecution had finished, it was Uncle Jake's turn. He began with permission from the court. The defense wishes to introduce a videotape of the events as evidence. This tape is exculpatory, Your Honor. Just then, the assistant prosecutor objected, claiming that this was new evidence that had not been presented for review. There is a reason for this, Uncle Jake explained. The defense is concerned about bias from the district attorney in the court, as well as the unfair blocking of our evidence. Do you have proof that the district attorney has been compromised, Mr. Carter? The judge inquired. The proof is in the video, Your Honor, Uncle Jake responded. The judge began to rise, saying, Then you and the prosecution will come to my chambers, where I will review the tape and decide whether it is admissible. Uncle Jake interrupted. No, Your Honor, we will not do that. Why not? The judge demanded, his rage growing at the defiance. Because, Your Honor, Uncle Jake explained, the defense does not trust the court's impartiality, and we will not risk having our evidence suppressed. The judge, visibly perturbed, inquired, Do you accuse the court of corruption, Mr. Carter? Perhaps, Your Honor, Uncle Jake replied. Mr. Carter, can you prove your accusation? Is that proof also on tape? The judge pressed. It is on the tape, Your Honor, Uncle Jake confirmed. However, I can prove my point if you answer a few questions. The judge, skeptical, clarified. Let me get this straight, Mr. Carter. You think you can show the court's bias against your client by asking me a few questions. Is this correct? Yes, Your Honor, Uncle Jake confirmed. The judge, now intrigued, said, Very well, Mr. Carter, ask your questions. However, if you fail, we will review the tape in chambers, and I will rule on its admissibility. I accept, Your Honor, Uncle Jake agreed. However, if this videotape is found inadmissible and my client is convicted based on the testimony of the 3 prosecution witnesses, I will release the tape to the media and online, regardless of the court's decision. Furthermore, if you do not release the tape, you will jeopardize your credibility. The judge, feeling threatened, stated, I feel like I'm being threatened, Mr. Carter. Before the judge's rage could erupt further, Uncle Jake quickly inquired, Isn't your oldest son in college, Your Honor? He's attending the Air Force Academy, right? Yes, the judge responded. He is a freshman. Isn't it very competitive to get into the Air Force Academy? Uncle Jake proceeded. The judge nodded. It is. Uncle Jake explained. First, your son had to apply through your district's congressman or senator. He was then scheduled for a civil service exam, and based on the results, he was chosen alongside 9 other candidates. He was sent to a nearby Air Force base for a medical examination, physical fitness test, and pilot and navigator aptitude test. In addition, he needed to take college entrance exams. Is this all correct, Your Honor? Yes, the judge responded. He received an A in high school and participated on the swim team each year. You are understandably proud of him, Your Honor. The judge grew impatient and demanded, Mr. Carter, state your point. Uncle Jake pushed on. Your son's application packet also contained 3 letters of recommendation, correct? That's correct, Mr. Carter, the judge confirmed. Your Honor, who were those letters from? Let us see. 1 letter was from his swim coach, and the 3rd was written by his math teacher. Your Honor, Uncle Jake inquired pointedly. The judge hesitated before admitting. Mr. Stanley Cross recommended my son for admission to the Air Force Academy. Uncle Jake seized the moment by saying, Mr. Cross must have known your son very well, unless he fabricated a letter full of lies. The judge clarified. My son worked in Mr. Cross's office during his sophomore and junior years of high school. He wants to become a lawyer someday. So, Mr. Cross is a family friend? Uncle Jake inquired further. He's more of an acquaintance than a family friend, as well as a professional associate in some of the legal organizations to which I belong. So now, Your Honor, you understand the defense's concern about your impartiality in this case. Uncle Jake finished his questioning. The judge responded, You've put me in a position that calls into question my integrity, Counselor. Please know that any association with Mr. Cross will not influence my decisions, but you've brought up an issue of perception. The judge paused for a moment before looking up and saying, Turn on the video, Counselor. Uncle Jake instructed the bailiff to turn down the lights and lower the projection screens on either side of the judge's bench. Uncle Jake turned to me and said, "Showtime, Blake." I pressed the enter key, and the video started playing. The entire scene unfolded in front of the judge, prosecution, and courtroom audience. Cross threatened me, saying, "I personally know the majority of the top police officials. I know many of the attorneys in the DA's office. I've even had fun with some of them." The prosecution bench let out a collective gasp. The assistant district attorney lowered her head to the table and began sobbing. We all stared at her for a moment before she quickly gathered her belongings and exited the courtroom, still crying. Uncle Jake continued to watch the video. Cross, Max, and Tracy attempted to leave the courtroom quietly together, but they were easily noticed. The judge explicitly instructed them to remain seated. The remaining ADAs watched the video until the end. The lead prosecutor stood up quickly, clearly looking for a break, but before he could ask, Uncle Jake said, "I have another video." Uncle Jake played the second video without waiting for permission, explaining that it had been recorded 2 weeks earlier when my wife paid me a visit in my townhouse. He then pressed enter, and the video started. Tracy understood the full impact of the video. It showed her admitting everything Cross had attempted to do to me. She screamed at Blake, "How could you do this to me?" After a few minutes, Cross understood the gravity of the situation. "You are a stupid fool. You allowed him to record you. What were your thoughts?" he exclaimed. Tracy had no idea that when she came to visit me, I had my iPhone set to record everything she said. The phone was on the coffee table in front of her, hidden behind books and papers. I turned it on right before opening the door to let her in. ADA requested a recess to go over the new evidence. Uncle Jake handed ADA DVD copies of the videotapes. The trial was adjourned until the following morning. The following morning, 3 prosecution witnesses were noticeably absent. Instead of the acting district attorney, the county's actual district attorney sat at the prosecution table. The judge let him speak first. "I'll be brief, Your Honor," he said. "First, all charges against Mr. Ramsey are dropped. We believe he acted in self-defense by defending himself against Mr. Cross and Mr. Angelo. It was quite violent self-defense, but it was still self-defense. Second, my office has issued arrest warrants for Mr. Stanley Cross, Mr. Max Angelo, and Mrs. Blake Ramsey for conspiracy to commit perjury, bribery, perjury, assault with intent to cause grievous harm, making false statements to police, filing false complaints, and obstructing justice. Furthermore, my office was informed that Mr. Cross attempted to plant false evidence against Mr. Ramsey. Mr. Angelo and Mrs. Ramsey were aware of this. We have also identified 2 suspects who worked for Mr. Cross and attempted to plant false evidence, and we are in the process of arresting them. Stanley Cross, Max Angelo, and my wife were arrested and later released on bail. The district attorney was furious to learn that Stanley Cross had compromised his office over the years, and he set out to find all of his colleagues who had worked with Cross. Ultimately, all of the defendants were convicted. Stanley Cross was the only one who pleaded not guilty, which turned out to be a mistake because both Max and Tracy pleaded guilty and testified against him. Cross was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Max received a 7-year sentence, while Tracy was sentenced to 5 years. Jose and Miguel were arrested for allegedly obstructing justice and tampering with evidence. The district attorney pitted them against one another until Miguel broke down and confessed, hoping for a lighter sentence. Both ended up serving lengthy prison sentences. Stanley Cross was held in county jail before being transferred to state prison. Max and Tracy, on the other hand, were given 2 weeks to organize their affairs before turning themselves in to the sheriff. Max used that time to prepare his family for his 7-year absence, hoping to be paroled in 4 years with good behavior, as his lawyer had advised. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.